Hey folks, I want to start out this Monday morning by giving a shout out to a bunch of students who have really been doing well. That's not the whole point of this video, but I want to start on a positive note today. Last Friday, I had to go through all of my students and send home missing assignments reports. And first and foremost, I want to acknowledge Mario had 0 missing assignments. Like, he was my only advisory student who had 0 missing assignments, and that is pretty incredible. So, Mario, nice work. These other students are making sure that they get their work turned in and keeping up in English class, so I also wanted to acknowledge them. Deontay, Angel, Lawrence, Cheyenne, Louis, sorry, Tanaya, Kaylin, Maurice, Autumn, Talia, Jasmine, Tijana, Jameer, Charles, and Travis. The first 2 weeks of the second quarter, you guys are keeping up really well. And I know it's hard for all of us right now during this time to keep on it. So you guys are doing awesome. And I hope that you do something to relax or reward yourselves today for your hard work. The main point of this video, however, is to talk about last week's article of the week. I want y'all to revisit it. I have a couple of people who probably don't need to do this assignment at all. Okay. If I look back through my records, I'm going to say that if you got like 23, 24, or 25 on this assignment, you don't need to even watch this video. But that's only going to be like 5 or 6 of you. So take a look at your assignment grade, and if you got an A on this assignment already, then feel free to skip it, although you might want to stick around because I might be using your assignment as an example, and I called you or let you know, right? Or I texted you and let you know. So I have 62 students in my class, and when I look at Google Classroom, I see that only 12 people have a grade for this assignment. So that's either because it didn't get done and I haven't seen any work from you yet, or because I returned it to you and asked you to revisit it. So there are 3 things I want to point out today. 1 is the video lesson, 2 is annotations, and 3 is the questions at the end of the assignment. I'm going through this and encouraging you to do it again because, as you know, all along you were going to be writing an essay about this topic. And if you haven't done the assignments, then you can't write the essay. So when I lesson plan, and I'm sorry, I have been sick, so I'm sorry about my voice. When I lesson plan, I make sure that I have things in a particular order so that you can be successful. So like first I gave you an assignment about Confederate monument controversy. So if you did that, then you have a good basis, right? And then we read the article of the week and we read it together in this screencast. I did a guided reading of it so that you would be really sure and understand it. And I asked you to do an assignment over it. And then we talked about thesis statements, and I gave you an assignment for writing a thesis statement. And then I gave you a planning sheet so that you could plan your essay. I've built everything. We call this scaffolding in education, okay? Like a scaffold along the side of the house. If you're painting a house, you can't reach the top unless you have something to climb on. So my point being that if you didn't do all of those assignments and you didn't do them in the order that I gave them to you, then you're probably really, really struggling right now. Now, what I want to do is I want to revisit this assignment here, the Confederate Monument, My Body is a Confederate Monument article, because 1, watch the video lesson. You guys, some of you need to go back and watch it again. Like I can see through Edpuzzle whether or not you've even opened it. Like I know that more than half my students didn't even open it. And a lot of times when I started grading them, I would I could pretty much know from your first annotation whether or not you watched the video lesson. And 9 times out of 10, when I go back and look, if you just totally did not get it, you were way off the mark. You also didn't watch the video lesson. So please make sure you watch this, because I went through and I did a guided reading. I read the entire article to you, and I stopped after each paragraph pretty much and clarified things to make sure you understood them. Please go back and watch it. And if you need to, please go back and watch it again carefully and listen. All right? So that's Edpuzzle. 2, annotations. One common misconception I think a lot of you have, and maybe this was just a miscommunication on my part. What I see with a lot of you is that you only give me 3 annotations, no matter how long or short the article is. You give me 1 surprise, 1 question, and 1 challenge, confirm, or change thinking. Even though I gave you 3 different kinds of annotations that you could use, that didn't mean that no matter how long or short the article is, I only wanted you to write 3 annotations total. You should be annotating as needed. Okay? As needed. So the longer the article and the more complex the article, the more annotations I should see from you. And in fact, the more confusing the article seems to you, the more questions I should see in your annotations. So I'm going to go through like for example, here's Travis. Okay, Travis did a really nice job annotating this week, because when we go back up to the beginning here, we see that from the very beginning, he doesn't always have super long annotations, but he has several annotations from the beginning to the end. So that annotation shows me that he's been thinking about what he's reading from the start all the way through to the very last word. Okay, just sometimes even little things like, I like the use of metaphor in this story. I would have liked to see him go a little more into why he liked her to see her comparing her body to a monument. But I'm just happy to see he noticed it was a metaphor, okay? She does use a metaphor, an extended metaphor, we call that. She compares her body to a monument through the whole thing. A monument is something that pays honor to something or someone else, that it shows praise for something or someone else. And she makes this very complex metaphor, and he didn't lose sight of that. Okay, so I'm so happy he recognized it. So again, he has all these little things. And then here's another thing I like about Travis's annotations, is that if we were in a regular classroom, he would be able to say, Miss Todd, here's what I see. And I would be able to respond to him, right? I'm able to do that with him here. So it's like through his annotations, we're able to have a conversation, even though we can't be in the same room. Okay, so he had a question here, I think. It was kind of a combination of a question and a challenge, confirm, or change. So he says, I'm not sure how descendant stuff works, but how would that work out? He's referring to, I'm not sure that that's really what I would have highlighted there, but he did. It's okay. So he's not sure how this whole descendant thing, it's this one, I'm sorry. So she says she has no white people in her memory, in her family, but she is half white according to DNA testing. So that means that any whiteness in her blood has to go back before her memory, before her parents, before her grandparents. So he says he's not sure how that works. So he's saying this is both a question and a challenge, because he thinks that this is hard to believe, that she wouldn't have any white people at all that she could remember in her family if she in fact has white blood in her system, white DNA, so to speak. I'm able to respond to that and clarify it for him. This is why I'm saying the more confused you are about an article, the more questions I should see in your annotations. Okay, so I'm able to respond to him and saying, she's saying that as long as she has been alive, she has not known any ancestors who were not white. In her memory, all of her ancestors have been black. So that means that her white DNA has to have come from long before she, or perhaps even her grandparents, were born. All right. So he did a really nice job here. And then we get to the end. He answers the questions very specifically, short but sweet. Okay. But he does answer them. Like, for example, this one says, what kind of history should be commemorated? And is there a kind of history that should not be? Explain. There are 3 parts to this question. What should be commemorated? What should not be commemorated? And explain your answer. So just in case, for those of you who missed the boat, you guys, in my video, my video lesson, I talked about exactly what commemorated means. But a lot of you, it's clear you still don't understand what that word means. To commemorate something means you give it props, okay? You honor it. You respect it. You show that it deserves your praise. So I'm asking you to think about, what kind of history do you think deserves props? And what kind of history can we look at in our history of our country and say, we should not be showing honor and praising that particular history. We should be dissing that history. We should be ashamed of that history. We should wish that history weren't even there. Which is not to say that we should try to erase it or whitewash it or sweep it under the rug, okay? It's just saying there's some history that we can be proud of, and there's some history that maybe we shouldn't be proud of. I'm asking you to tell me which is which, in your opinion. And then I'm asking you to explain to me why you feel that way. Okay? So that's that. I'll get to the other questions later. Another student who did a phenomenal job on this was Dejana. If I scroll through here, you can see it. Dejana always has huge details in her annotations. She's very, very specific about what she's thinking, okay? And she has a lot of really nice stuff here, but I'll just kind of look here. Again, I'm able to have a conversation with her through her annotations because she gives enough information to explain what she's thinking and to give me something to respond to. So here, she didn't have a question. She had, where is her original comment? Well, her original comment disappeared. Oh, well. Anyway. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys, it is 6 a.m. and I'm sick. So this is her annotation. Duh. All right. Because some people put their comments here and some people put them here. So she's responding to this section here. Okay. About, how she has a great grandfather who was white and who was also a Confederate general and who was a grand wizard in the Ku Klux Klan. So clearly she has a great grandfather who was, I mean, you can't say it in a way, he's pretty racist. The dude was a member of the KKK. All right. So Dejana says, as I am Black, all I was told was how bad white people were to us. And to an extent, I do believe what my family has told me, but I don't think that all white people were bad. I mean, yes, some had a bad past, but were still considered honorable, but others did not do anything horrible, but still had that bad past as defined by the people before them. And when I say this, I also mean white people in today's world. If you don't get what I'm saying, here is an example. Okay, so she gives this huge example about how she thinks that our current leadership in this country is very, very racist and very, very against Black people. I'm not saying you all have to have huge, giant annotations like this, but I'm saying look at how much detail she goes into to really show what she's thinking and respond to what she's reading. And then I was a little concerned myself because I'm like, I hope that she didn't get the impression that the article was anti-white, because I don't think that was what the author intended. It certainly wasn't what I wanted you to think. And I talk about how, well, I didn't interpret that way, but I can see how maybe you could interpret it that way. And then she's able to respond to me again and say, well, no, actually, that's not the way I took it. But here we are having this conversation, Dejana and I, on a document, on a Google Doc. Okay. I would like to be able to do this with more of you. but you have to give me something to bite. Okay. You got to put a little worm on that hook and give me something to bite. Otherwise, I'm not able to have these kinds of conversations with you. And it's through these kinds of conversations that we learn. Okay. So down here again, she gives very specific answers to the final 3 questions. I'll get to the middle question in a minute. Let's look at her last question. How does the controversy surrounding Confederate monuments highlight a broader controversy among people in the United States? Okay, so I'm going to reiterate again, like I said originally, people aren't really fighting about monuments. They're not really fighting about statues. What they're fighting about is the ideas those statues represent. Okay, people who support the Confederate statues don't see anything wrong with taking pride in Confederate history. And the people who see a problem with the statues think that that particular history celebrates racism. The broader controversy is about racism in the United States and the conflicts between different types of people who see things differently. I'm asking you to explain to me how you understand that. Okay. So she says it highlights the broader controversy among people in the United States by bringing attention to the problem. So she sees a problem here, that the controversy over monuments brings attention to that problem. It tells people we need to mend this crack if we want to get over it in one piece. That she sees that there is a crack in our society, that there are too many people who are fighting over things, and that we need to get over this because we are falling apart, that we need to learn to mend our ways with each other. Okay, so I won't read all of it, but that was her take. Again, I'm not asking you to tell me what Dejana saw. I'm asking you to tell me what you see, but I'm trying to better explain what I meant by that question, because I think a lot of you didn't understand it, and that might have been my fault. All right. Here we have Talia. She doesn't have a million annotations, but the ones that she does have, she makes sure that she explains very clearly what she means. Like here, she highlights the section about how the author talks about how the whiteness in her comes from the slave owners who raped their slaves. And those slaves ended up having babies who were half white. So she says, this surprises me because I was never taught that African Americans were also sexually assaulted or raped by slave owners. I was too afraid to ask if they were, but now I know. It is awful to even think about how white slave owners raped and abused their slaves for their skin color. It is awful. Okay, and I don't think it was just because of their skin color. I think it was because they had power. They had the power to do so. Okay, they didn't see their slaves as people. They didn't see their slaves as anything other than property that they owned, and they could do whatever they wanted with them. So that question of power, I also asked you to think about, and that's why I'm bringing that up. And I think it's interesting that Talia feels that she can ask this question here. Okay. Hey, I always wondered about that, but I was always too afraid to ask. Like, I didn't want to raise my hand in class and go, so did they rape them? Because that's a very sensitive question. But because she's able to write it in a document instead of raising her hand in front of everybody in the room and asking that question, she's able to start that conversation. Okay. And I'm not going to lie, it doesn't hurt that I'm also her mom. But I mean, I can remember being a teenager and there were things that I was afraid to ask my parents too. Okay. So, that's part of the reason this annotation is really important, because it allows you to ask those things and say those things that maybe you would be too timid to say in front of a whole group of people. All right. So again, she also is very, very specific when she gives her answers here. I am going to now address this question about power because she has an answer that is pretty powerful here, I think. So I asked you guys, what is the role of power in this controversy? I'm asking you, who has power and who doesn't? I'm asking you, who has had power historically and who has not? I'm asking you how that power has affected this controversy. Here's what she says. The role of power in the controversy are the white slave owners who raped or defiled African Americans. The author speaks about how whites have always had power and used it against African Americans for their own good. People argue against this and say that we all have equal racial power, but we don't. It is disgusting how people believe that whites can be racially discriminated against. They can be stereotyped, but they cannot be racist towards. I think okay. So I see what she's saying here. They can be stereotyped, but that what she's arguing here is that I think she's arguing here that if you're white, you're not going to be a victim of racism, because she's saying here that whites have more power. They have more political power and more economic power and more social power than other races in our country. That's what she's saying. So this last sentence here, I see what she's saying, even if it's not clear the way it's written, that she believes that there is no like reverse racism because you have to have power in order to be racist, if that makes any sense to you. I mean, this is like, she understood this question. A lot of you didn't understand this question, and I don't think it was entirely your fault. I think that for future assignments, I need to edit that question. All right. So you guys, you don't have to agree with what she said here, but I'm asking you to think about who has power. I mean, maybe you think that people of color have more power than whites in our country now. Maybe you think that. Fine, then write about that. Okay. But this was her take. And I want to wrap this up because I know this video is getting long, but I also want to acknowledge Kaylin always has really nice work. And when I scroll through here, you see that she has from beginning to end highlighted and annotated throughout the entire article, just like Travis did. Travis's comments were usually a little bit shorter. Okay. She always has a lot to say. But, I mean, like even here, she's like, I agree. Some of you would just stop there. Okay. She gives a very specific explanation of why she agrees. I agree. If white people were able to have monuments for the things they did, why can't black people? Whites are celebrated for the things they did, even though the things they did were despicable. Black people fought so we all could have equal rights. That's worth being monumented. Now, I kind of commented back and had a conversation with Kaylin about how we do, in fact, see monuments for people of color. Okay. We see them all the time. It's just that this particular article in this particular issue was specific to Confederate monuments. So, I mean, she's not wrong. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm saying that you want to consider this particular article was only about a particular kind of monument. So there are, in fact, many monuments to people of color also. But maybe there's a different kind of controversy that surrounds those monuments, because I guarantee you that the door swings both ways, that there's controversies about all kinds of monuments in our country. So then, too, you see that at the very end, she has given a very specific answer for the first one, and more than specific answer for the last question. And, she, I think, like you guys, like a lot of you struggled with this question about power. So she does acknowledge she thinks that the Confederates had more power than somebody, but over everyone else needs to be more specific, yada, yada. Okay. So you guys, I want y'all, unless you have a 23, 24, or 25 out of 25 on this assignment, you need to go back and you need to redo this, and you need to resubmit it today. There's no article of the week this week. There's a bonus opportunity. If you want to do an article of the week, you can do it for bonus points, but there is no new article of the week that has been assigned. I want you to go back and I want you to redo this one today, not tomorrow, not Wednesday, today, before you have to write your essay. So this and reading rumination is all you need to do today. Okay. I mean, I say all you need to do as if that's not much work. I know it's a lot of work, but tomorrow is a makeup day. So you will have plenty of time to make sure that you have all of this done. Okay. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and have a great day.